Today we're going to address students with physical and health disabilities, referred to in the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act as students with other health impairments. So students with other health impairments and physical impairments, they're very different populations, but included in one chapter. So there can be students that have significant health issues related to things like asthma and diabetes or AIDS, but there also can be students who have physical impairments, maybe missing a limb, but don't have additional health impairments. So it's a very different group. But what we're talking about for many of these children, particularly children with physical impairments, is treatment advocated, but also advocated institutionalization. And so placed into institutions which were not really where they received the best care at all. But after we had veterans returning from the war, we started to note that these were people who served their country, came back with disabilities, and were entitled to our care and to our best care and to our support. And so we do see national organizations springing up to support children with physical and health impairments, such as Easter Seals and the March of Dimes. We do have a number of, again, court cases, just like every other disability group has had important court cases that have shaped how we provide education to children with health impairments. And these are two examples of cases that went as high as the Supreme Court. And we know that the Supreme Court does not hear all cases in our land. They only pick and choose, and so we have the case of the Irving Independent School District versus Tatro, and Cedar Rapids case versus Garrett from your textbooks as well. So important terms that we need that are connected to disability, chronic, such as cerebral palsy. Chronic meaning that it's there, it doesn't go away. Acute, severe, such as childhood cancers. Progressive meanings that it starts out less severe and progresses as the child grows. Episodic, epilepsy is an example of that. There are episodes of challenges for someone who has epilepsy, such as seizures. Congenital, present at birth, and acquired, occurs after birth. The IDEA definition of orthopedic impairment is a severe impairment that adversely affects a child's education performance. The term includes impairments caused by congenital anomalies, impairments caused by disease, and impairments from other causes. So we also need to know terms that refer to parts of the child's body. Monoplegia, only one limb. Hemiplegia, one side of the full body. Paraplegia, only the legs are impacted. Tetraplegia, formerly called quadriplegia, involves all limbs and trunks of the body. And diplegia, both legs or both arms are affected. So what are some common neurological disabilities that results in the child having physical impairments? We have cerebral palsy, and there's a number of different types of cerebral palsy. Spastic, athetoid, ataxic, and mixed are all types of cerebral palsy, all impacting the child in different ways. So as teachers, it's good for us to know what type of cerebral palsy the child has. Spina bifida, the spina bifida occulta, meningocoeli, I don't know, these are hard to pronounce, myelomeningocele. I think I'm pronouncing them correctly, but in any event, spina bifida definitely impacting the child's movement and impacting the child in certain ways in terms of the child's ability to lift their bodies, lift their heads. Spinal cord injury, it's just what it says. Duchenne muscular dystrophy is a progressive disability that used to result in younger and younger death. Now we do have some people who are entering adulthood and living longer lives. And juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Also in this chapter we have traumatic brain injury. And traumatic brain injury is an acquired injury, so occurring after birth, to the brain caused by an external physical force, resulting in total or partial functional disability or psychosocial impairment, or both. It adversely affects the child's educational performance. So traumatic brain injuries occur due to physical abuse, car accidents, any type of accidents, falling off some type of play equipment, falling in sports. So there are types of traumatic brain injury. There's a closed head injury, no physical injury to the skull, and an open head injury. Skull is fractured and the membrane surrounding the brain is penetrated. So obviously an open head injury will impact the child more. Possible effects that occur related to traumatic brain injury. Cognitive skills could be impacted, a child's processing ability, their language, academic achievement, emotions, and behavior. So it should make sense to you that anything related to the brain or parts of the brain will be impacted. So it depends on where the injury in the brain occurs. The causes of traumatic brain injury, most of them are related to car and motorcycle accidents, playground accidents, falls from bicycles, assaults related to gun and violence, and struck or shaken. When we talk about other health impairment, these are children that have limited strength, vitality, or alertness, including a heightened alertness to environmental stimuli that results in limited alertness with respect to the educational environment that adversely affects a child's educational performance. And so here we're talking about children, again, that have problems with their health that really impacts their ability in school in terms of being alert, in terms of having strength. Some health impairments include asthma, epilepsy. Again, there's a number of different types of epilepsy, and it's good for teachers to know what type the child has. Many of these children will be on medication. HIV and full-blown AIDS, cancer, sickle cell anemia, and diabetes are all examples of other health impairments. Characteristics of individuals with physical and health disabilities. So their cognition is going to vary widely. Some of them could be gifted children. So it will just depend. Behavioral, emotional, and social. A lot of times there are behavioral problems that are present as a result of having another health impairment, traumatic brain injury, or physical disability. They may have low self-esteem due to their, perhaps, how they look or how they act. May need help relating to peers. Teachers must learn about each student's condition, risks, and needs. So this is going to be, these populations will vary very wildly, and the teacher needs to learn about each child individually. So for this population, for all of them, medical assessments are going to be very important, to include psychological health, physical health, intellectual functioning, academic achievement and communication, as well as assessments in the area of behavior. An individualized education program is planned and implemented when the student's disability has a significant negative effect on educational performance. So here we see the difference again between an IEP and a Section 504 plan. There are some children with physical disabilities as well as some children with health impairments that will not need an IEP, but they might need a Section 504 plan or a service agreement plan. And the difference is that a 504 plan provides the child with accommodations so that they can access the general education curriculum. For children with that have a health impairment or a physical impairment that impacts them so severely, where they would need specially designed instruction, related services, and supports and aids, they would get the IEP. In early childhood, again, a lot of the services are at home, but then they will enter preschool, where the focus is still on the family, as well as what are the needed services and resources for the child and the family. At the elementary and secondary level, about half of the students with physical and other health impairments are in general education classrooms for all or part of the day. But for children with traumatic brain injury, less than 33% are in general education classrooms. So traumatic brain injury really can impact a child's ability to function in the school setting. Many students will receive services in special education classrooms, in hospitals, in residential facilities, or at home. In terms of inclusion, certainly the multidisciplinary team will determine that. Students with physical and health conditions mostly need access, so we're talking about being able to get to the room, get around the classroom. Students with significant or multiple disabilities may access the general ed curriculum classroom with supports and special ed services. Just like any other population, transition to adulthood is going to be very important. So where will they go after high school? What kinds of transportation services will they need? Will they need to learn how to use transportation? What kind of living arrangements will they need? Will they need a community-based home with supports? What career choices, what agency supports will they need? So, for children with physical impairments and for children with other health impairments, we're really talking about access-related issues. For children with physical impairments, we're looking at posture and mobility issues, aids to communicate, aids for learning, related services. We want to know how to respond to emergencies for children with other health impairments and traumatic brain injuries. For children with traumatic brain injuries, we're looking at re-entry for school, and for children with health impairments, because they might have a number of absences. Perspective of families are all will be different. So, but for many of these families, particularly the health impaired and traumatic brain injury, they're thinking about daily survival. They have to get accustomed to procedures and routines related to the health of their child. They have to educate themselves and advocate for their child. They need to deal with siblings' needs because the child with disabilities will take up a lot of their time potentially, and they definitely will need help from school professionals. The trends and issues in this population: how prepared are teachers to work with students with physical and health disabilities, and how available is the technology to students in all areas, in rural areas as well as for those who come from poverty. And that will include our chapter 13.